building a culture infrastructure. So when you talk about building a culture, what you're really talking about doing is building teams. And whether you're building a team of superheroes to defend the earth from invasion, from evil aliens, or whether you're doing something that's even much more difficult, which is putting a team of people together to deliver health care. Whatever you're doing, it all starts with culture. So what's culture? Culture, for the context of what we're going to be talking about, really has to do with how people feel engaged with the place that they work at. How do they feel they are doing relative to their support, their managers, their co-workers? Is it a place where they feel they can bring ideas up and they have value? Is it a place where they can improve things? Are they listened to? Are they engaged? Are they supported? Really, culture has to do with that in terms of what we're going to be talking about today. A couple of reasons of why culture is important. This was an article put in the Wall Street Journal in August, and it was really a day or two after the current CEO of Microsoft announced that he was going to be stepping down and they would have a one-year transition plan to bring on the new CEO. And so within literally hours, you had articles like this where next CEO's biggest job is fixing Microsoft's culture. At Software Giant, the subtext is, at Software Giant, taking the safe, profitable route often wins out over innovation. So their CEO's next important job is not, hey, how does he get into the Indian market? How do they develop faster hardware? How do they decide whether they do more software or hardware? Are there other areas that they should be looking for in terms of technology or penetration? None of that. Their most important challenge is fixing Microsoft's culture. So we'll come back and kind of talk a little bit about this, but it is a big, big deal. So this is Twitter. So this is something that happened last night, and I don't know if you can read it back there. So the first one is, hey, I visited the Medcare Urgent Care on Two Notch Road twice. Top-notch service, very friendly staff and doctors, short wait, highly recommend. And this is somebody named Jill. Paige responds to her, did you by chance see Dr. Wilson? She's awesome. Next, Jill, she has a great sense of humor. Yeah, I'm done with doctor's care too. So, I'm talking to you about culture, and I'm going to talk to you a lot about culture, but I don't want you to confuse culture as this kind of abstract concept that's just soft, warm, and fuzzy. Culture has a direct business implication. This is a business implication. Two things happened here. One person within this all happened within a matter of minutes. And it still goes on this morning. There were some more things this morning. Somebody liked it, they spread the word, somebody else acknowledged that like, they spread it, and then they said, yes, we're not going to the competitor as well. So this stuff is important. And it's important across the entire spectrum of our business. Several years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek. And so he put a thought out there, a process out there, that great companies, great leaders, all have similar things in common, right? And that there's a concept of this golden circle. And in this golden circle, those companies or those leaders, they start with the why and then move to the how and the what. Why do you exist? So if you think about it, the why part is, what's the cause? What is it that we're here to do, and why are we engaged in this exercise? The what part, or the how part, I'm sorry, is simply the value proposition. How do we do things a little bit differently? What kind of service do we deliver? Are we faster? The how part. The what part is kind of the easiest part. Well, what is it that we're doing? What's the product or service? So if I were to go to Atlanta Bread or Best Buy or Target, and I were to ask their employees these questions, and I asked them, well, what do you do? Why is it that Target exists? Or why is it that Best Buy exists? Probably a couple of them would scratch their head, and it would be a little bit confusing for them to answer that question. If I go to the how, they might be able to say, well, you know, we have this geek squad and we do some different things, and so we're a little bit different. And if I ask them what, well, everybody has a pretty good sense of, well, we sell computers, we sell, you know, sandwiches and pizza, we sell X, Y, and Z. So this is the easy part. What is it that we do? But really the challenge is to kind of understand why we do what we do. And if you think about that Microsoft for a second, I want you to think about Apple. So if you think about Microsoft and Apple, I want to ask you, is there any reason or any limitation that Microsoft has that Apple doesn't have in terms of recruiting the best talent anywhere in the world? Do you think? Is Apple better positioned for some reason to recruit talent in ways that Microsoft isn't? Right? Is there any reason why Microsoft can compete in places or Apple can compete in places that Microsoft can't? Geographically, are there any geographic limitations? So when you think about it, Microsoft and Apple basically have the same access to talent, to capital, a bunch of things. So if I were to tell you that, you know, I'm going to go to Chicago on Monday, so I have a conference that I have to attend, and my wife helped me arrange flights, and she booked it for me, and she said, you know what, I found you this flight, and you're going to leave Charleston, you're going to fly on the I-plane. Then you're going to get to Chicago, and you're going to fly back, and you're going to have a great experience. So probably a couple of you would be a little confused. Now if I told you, I said, you know what, she made this flight arrangement for next year. Turns out that Apple is introducing a whole new airline, and they're going to be calling it I-plane. How many of you would say, well, I could see where they would do that? Now if I told you that I'm going to fly on Microsoft, probably a little more confusing. If I told you that I had to get up here this morning and I wanted to get up early, and you know I wanted to exercise, so I got up first thing in the morning and I set my iPad for the alarm to go off, and then I set my iPhone to trigger, and then I loaded my iPod with some music, and I loaded it up, and I put it on my sleeve, and I went running. If I told you the same thing, that instead I had my Dell pad, and then I put my Dell product on my shoulder, and I put my Dell, it just doesn't make sense. Yet we know that both of these companies, Dell, Microsoft, all of these companies, they essentially have access to the same resources. What makes them different is their culture, the why. So Apple's reason for existing is what? Apple's reason for existing is that they believe that they can improve the human experience by putting products out there that are elegant, stylish, and make things better. Right? Their mission and their whole reason for being isn't that, hey, we can squeeze 10 more terabytes of information into this, or we use alloys that are better than everybody else. That's their mission. That's why they exist. And because they understand why they exist, they're not limited by, well, we only make computers. I mean, think about it. These guys are one of the #1 sellers of music. Cell phones, iPads, everything. It's not limited by just desktops. Whereas Microsoft, if you think about Microsoft, Microsoft is always playing catch up to Apple. And it has everything to do with culture. Everything to do with culture. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that's an important thing to understand, because when you want to think about Medcare, you're going to want to know why we do what we do.